Howdy folks, welcome back to War Thunder with the Mighty Jingles. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at this little beauty, the de Haviland Mosquito. Rank 12 British bomber. And yeah, bomber, it's in the bomber line. Although it isn't really a bomber, it's a fighter bomber. But it's a dedicated fighter bomber. It's not like those Americans that take a fighter, strap some bombs onto them and call it a fighter bomber. This was actually designed from the ground up as a fighter bomber. Well, that's not strictly true either. The de Haviland Mosquito was just absolutely excellent at one thing, and that was high-speed, precision delivery of munitions to an enemy target, and then getting the hell out of there before fighters could be scrambled to intercept it. In my opinion, I don't think there was a better aircraft in the war for doing that. It was just so good at that role. How does it perform in War Thunder? Well, let's have a look. So, domination mission over Stalingrad. So this is going to demonstrate the limitations of the Mosquito when you have to use it to hunt enemy aircraft. And the problems are, well, it has multiple problems. It's very, very well armed. It's as well armed as the Beaufighter, and the weapons in this thing are all in the nose, unlike on the Beaufighter, which has wing-mounted weapons. So the chances are that most of the shots that you fire are going to hit your target, because the weapons are clustered closer together. And it does dive very, very well. It has great speed in the dive, but its responsiveness to the controls slacks badly the faster you're going. And it becomes really hard, kind of like the ME410, when you're in a high-speed dive, really hard to keep your gun sight on the target. Now you can fix that by dropping your flaps while you're diving, and that does really improve the handling of the aircraft in the dive. But that just gets you killed. That gets you killed because boom and zoom, well, it's great for the boom, but it ain't no good for the zoom, because you're suddenly only doing 400 knots, 400 to 500 knots when you're in the dive, as opposed to 700 knots that you could be doing in the dive if you didn't have the flaps down. And then they catch you and kill you on the way out. Couple of ME410s there. Now these are the kind of targets that you should be able to make mincemeat of with this aircraft. And I will drop the flaps and the throttle to try and sit on this guy's tail. Just can't do it. Wow, got one. Flaps up. Now I had to use the flaps, and I had to roll, and I had to use the elevators to get the gun sight on the target. But that left me cruising around at 370 knots at low altitude. That's suicide. It's not what you want to be doing with this thing. At all. And as for speed, well, I'm struggling to keep up with the PE2 here. And I can't turn inside him. Fucking PE2 is managing to outturn me in this thing, and so much for the legendary speed of the Mosquito. I'm doing 370 knots, and I'm in a very, very shallow climb, and the speed's bleeding off at 100% throttle. This thing's got 2 Rolls-Royce Berlin engines, and it's made of plywood. Why is it not faster than this? It's certainly fragile enough that you believe it's made out of plywood. This thing gets shot out of the sky like you wouldn't believe, so easily. It cannot take a hit. but it just doesn't have the performance. And what little performance advantage it does have, played in arcade mode, is mostly negated. I'm going to go for some zoom and boom here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because in arcade mode pretty much everybody has the same, or very, very similar, handling performance. Oh great, there's an LA5 and he's coming. Right, he's coming for me. Oh, great, picked up a tail. Yeah, superior speed, my arse. I just... Bloody Mustang. Right, can I rely on my wingman to get this guy off me? Yeah. I can. No, I can't. Of course I fucking can't. And that's the Mosquito, using it as a fighter. It's just a big bag of fail. Or using it as a bomber hunter, it's just a big bag of fail. So let's give it a go in what it was actually designed to do, ground attack, and see how much better or worse it fares in that role. Well, at least I got a ground strike map this time. And I can show you just how much this thing sucks as a ground attack aircraft. It's a fighter bomber that only carries 2 bombs. What were they thinking? Well, I mean, you know, the real thing didn't have a massive bomb load either. But it was a precision, low-altitude bomber. So, you know, I can't complain. It's realistic. The problem is, it's crap. 2 500-pound bombs. P-47, is he gonna... No, stay on target. .600 knots, and you just cannot control this thing at this speed. That's the problem. And the other problem is you're made out of plywood. And you die second you go near a ground target. I've just lost an engine, most of a wing, and an aileron, and all I can really do now. This thing is so lightweight you can't even kill a medium tank by crashing into it. And even trying to play the thing the way it was designed to be played, by zooming in at high speed on a ground target, releasing your bombs and zooming out, it's not fast enough. I just got shot down by somebody on my tail, and I was doing 630 knots. It is not fast enough to do the role that it is designed to do in an arcade battle. It cannot do it. So, the de Haviland Mosquito is just been a great big crushing disappointment to me. And the reason for that, I think, after thinking about it, is because Gaijin have modelled it very, very accurately. And I realise that's going to sound like a contradiction, but I can't fault the way Gaijin have modelled this aircraft. Don't forget that in real life, what this thing was for, it was for carrying a very, very limited bomb load very, very quickly to a very precise target and delivering those bombs with deadly accuracy and getting the hell out of there before enemy fighters could be scrambled to intercept. And it did that job very, very well indeed. And that was its primary function. They were using them for reconnaissance as well, where the speed was, very useful for that sort of thing. They used them as night fighters and so on and so on. But the primary role that the Mosquito was used for during the Second World War was as a high-speed precision strike aircraft. And it excelled in that role. It was very, very good at that. And it's very, very good at that in War Thunder as well. The only problem is, the only situation in which there is a need for that kind of aircraft in War Thunder is not in arcade battles. In arcade battles, you need something that can maintain the hurt on the ground targets. And this just can't do it. It only carries 2 bombs. It's made out of plywood, so it falls apart as soon as anyone even looks at it. It can't maintain that speed and still be able to hit anything at low altitude. It doesn't have any defensive armament, so anything sits on its tail. It can't fire back. It's not fast enough when it's loitering over ground targets to escape. And it's made out of plywood, so it gets shot down very easily. So as a ground attack aircraft in arcade battles, it sucks. It really, really, really sucks. You can play it the way it was really played in arcade battles, and you'll probably do quite well. You know, pick your ground target well in advance, make your approach, dive in, get up to 720 knots, which doesn't matter about the unresponsiveness and the maneuverability and the low maneuverability when you're doing that sort of speed, because the ground target isn't trying to avoid your fire. Drop your bombs on it and then rocket out of there, and then loiter around for a minute while you're waiting for the bombs to come back up, and repeat. And it will be able to do that because that's what it was designed to do, and they have modelled it exactly like the real thing. I cannot fault the way Gaijin have implemented this aircraft into the game. But you'll come out of that game with 400 points at the very, very most, having killed maybe 6 ground targets, while the guy in the Mark 9 Spitfire has killed 8 fighters and 16 ground targets with his machine guns and cannons, because he can actually outmaneuver anybody at low altitude if they try to come down and stop him, you know, interfere with him shooting up the anti-aircraft guns and artillery. You can't. And this thing is it just isn't a fighter. It can't even zoom and boom, or boom and zoom, the way American fighters do. Because the American fighters do at least maintain their maneuverability in the dive. This thing doesn't. So, this thing, if you... How can I put this? You dive on a target with this thing, your speed builds up, the nose becomes less and less responsive, you can't maintain your shot at the target, you miss. But you can get away safe. And if you want to actually shoot down the target, you need to deploy your flaps while you're diving on it and maintain some sort of control over where the nose of the aircraft's pointing. And then you might kill it. But then you're going to die before you can get away, because now you're going too slow. And you don't have a defensive tail gunner, and you're made out of plywood. So it's useless. Useless in air-to-air. You can have some success using it as a bomber hunter. That's probably, in arcade battles, the way to play the Mosquito. Hunt bombers with it, because it's got very powerful weapons. And bombers can't dodge your fire as much as, you know, everything else. But I think the place where this thing is really, really going to shine is in historical battles. So, and I don't think that's necessarily going to be such a bad thing, because most of the people like me looking forward to flying this aircraft are going to be people of a certain age who grew up watching movies like 633 Squadron, or flight and history buffs, who tend to be the kind of people who are going to want to play historical battles more than arcade battles anyway. And I think this thing is going to be fantastic in historical battles. If we could ever get a historical battle with the Royal Air Force in it, just a little hint to Gaijin Entertainment there, that would be really nice. But the high-speed precision delivery of small amounts of very powerful munitions to a target, and then getting the hell out of there at high speed, with managing to avoid interception by enemy fighters, is exactly what this thing was for, and sounds to me like exactly the way this thing is going to succeed in historical battles. So there is that to look forward to. But if, like me, you were really looking forward to flying one of these things in arcade battles, lower your expectations, because this is not an arcade battle aircraft. I dare say there are people who can make it work, but it's really hard to make it work. It only really excels. Well, even using the word excel is probably a bit too strong, but it only really seems to work in such a limited range of environments and situations. It's just too much like hard work. And I have to say, you're not coming to this video where I have just jumped into the Mosquito for the first time, flown it, gotten my ass owned, and said, oh, this thing's shit. Oh, no. You are seeing this video after 3 solid days of me doing nothing but take the Mosquito up and try to make it work and try to find a way. And I've tried every different kind and combination of tactic with this aircraft in arcade battles. And this is the conclusion that I'm coming to after the 3 worst days of War Thunder I have ever had. Because this thing just does not work in arcade games. You need a magnificently incompetent enemy in order to get any kind of success with this thing in an arcade battle. And that's a real shame, because I was so looking forward to this thing. But it's not all bad news when you hit rank 12. You do get the very good Mark 16 Spitfire, which is basically just a Mark 9 Spitfire with the wings clipped and an American engine. Oh, that's not true. That one is 2 kilometers per hour faster than that one. But, you know, having another Mark 9 Spitfire, which is basically just all the Mark 16 is not a bad thing. So it ain't all bad news when you reach rank 12. There is something good to actually look forward to. And if you do historical battles, and if we ever get a British historical battle in the battle rotation, I really think that thing is going to shine and be really good. But if arcade battles are all you do, don't waste your time with the Mosquito. Just power on through. Would be my recommendation anyway. Just power on through until you reach the Avro Lancaster at rank 16. As always, watch your 6, and I'll catch you next time. But I won't be flying a Mosquito when I do it.